What a fantastic movie
Right.
that would be.
I'm going to talk about that. Maybe
Yeah.
we can.
How are you, Dave?
It's gonna be coming out in
minute to spare.
October or November.
Okay.
I swear, it
So-
took me almost as long to get from
And there's another one that is about
Higley in the
the,
freeway to Idaho, as it did Idaho up here.
Tesla.
Yeah, these lights stink. Oh, yeah, you get
This stuff.
Few.
Tess, you brought in?
Seven PM, and if everyone would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, turn off the pockets. My phone, I was just,
It's not you? Oh.
it's mine.
Oh, okay.
I can't get my voicemail.
I
Cooperate.
silence mine, so.
I can't never find out where the button is.
I like mine too.
Watch it start. Rudy, can we have roll call, please?
Commissioner Hanchey,
Present.
Vice Chair Heck,
Present.
Commissioner Howard,
Here.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Here.
Commissioner McGraw,
Here.
Chairwoman Nesser,
Here, present.
Commissioner Uli.
Here.
7 present, we have a quorum, Madam Chair.
We'll move on to the approval of the agenda. Would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the agenda as presented.
we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck,
Yes?
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Approval of the minutes of August 27th, 2019, 2019 regular meeting minutes. Can I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the minutes from the August 27th, 2019 regular meeting.
Okay, we have a motion. Can I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Rudy.
Chairwoman Nesser,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanchey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck,
Yes?
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler,
No.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
6 in favor, we have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to the public hearings,
One opposed.
and we have none. So we'll move on to old business, and we have none of that either. So we'll move on to new business, which we have one item, the presentation, discussion, and direction to staff on a proposed request for a city-initiated rezoning of the area bounded by Ironwood Drive, Gold Drive, Roundup Street, and Greasewood Street.
Good evening, Commission. My presentation tonight is just concerned with, it is a direction to staff proposal for the rezoning of the properties that are bounded by Ironwood Drive, Roundup Street, Gold Drive, and Greasewood Street. So this forms about 10 acres. And the current zoning of this entire area is currently RS 20M, which is medium-density, single-family single-family detached residential, which has a minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. And the proposed zoning is RS10M, which is also considered medium-density, single-family detached residential, but the distinction is that it has a minimum lot size and regulations are pertinent to 10,000 square foot lot size. And as is standard with all city-initiated rezoning, and, well, really just any rezoning, the city requests the dedication of the federally patented easements on the property so that it become the city's right-of-way, which is illustrated by the light green or blue in this diagram. The dark green is already the city's right-of-way. So staff was made aware of zoning issues by a property owner who voiced concern that the current zoning designation was too restrictive and that it didn't fit the circumstances of the neighborhood. And so staff did a little bit of research and observed that this was correct, as 13 of the 22 lots were somewhat far below the minimum lot size of 20,000 square feet. And that meant they were somewhat burdened by the current zoning regulations. The smaller lot sizes were, or the smaller lots were unable to meet that minimum, which has setback requirements and lot coverage requirements, while on the other hand, there were larger lots that were unable to split because they couldn't split in a way that met the 20,000 square foot lot requirement. And so, thinking of this and doing this research, staff held a neighborhood meeting in order to gauge neighborhood support, where we had a few comments from property owners, which were all both in support of the rezoning idea. And so as such, staff seeks the commission's direction to proceed with the city-initiated rezoning. Do you have any questions?
The only question I really have, and it didn't tell me exactly, how far, these lots that are less than 20,000 square feet or whatever,
Right.
has it always been zoned that they should have been 20,000, and they just, how did they get
So
divided in the
yeah.
past?
I understand what you're asking. We actually have run into a couple similar issues. In fact, we just earlier this month with City Council, we processed a rezoning of the lots immediately south of this. In 2014, the city adopted all the new zoning districts and boundary and the new zoning ordinance. And with that, there were a lot of spaces within the city that were just rezoned at once. And in this case, this area, just like the lots right below, were all rezoned kind of generally without complete regard for the detail of each lot size. And so they weren't necessarily meant to be 20,000 square feet each, but some of these were more general lot or like rural lots originally that over time became divided. So this area specifically, the neighborhood characteristics are slightly denser lots. And how it changed over time, I'm not necessarily sure, but in general, the reason it has this current zoning is just because in 2014, when the city enacted the new zoning ordinance, everything in this area got rezoned in a certain way at once.
It got rezoned to 20,000 when
correct.
they didn't look at each lot and say, no, we shouldn't do that. Okay. Anyone else? Question?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Nick, North Silver Drive. It's Nick, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
North Silver Drive, that doesn't require any city easement as for utilities or maintenance or anything? Because it looks like it's a dirt road that goes down about a third of the way. Is that right?
Right. So yeah, that is not, it's not a federal easement and it's not considered a city street either. I'm not completely sure how it got the designation it has in that it's not considered a street, but some of these are just kind of archaic. They just have existed since before the city was incorporated too. So it is just kind of a path. I think Silver Drive really exists in order to provide access to 1108 right off of Roundup Street. But other than that, it doesn't really function as a street.
Oh,
So it's really more like a driveway.
so,
Like an alley.
Now we,
There'd be
yeah,
street lights.
something.
That's all it is, and it's a big old long driveway for
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah.
Chair,
So we don't-
If that
we
gets
don't re-
maintained by the residents and not the,
That's
city.
correct.
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
Silver Drive is an alignment with street alignments that exist to the south of Apache Trail. Silver Drive only exists in a few places, in a few spots north of Apache Trail. And in this case, right or wrong, that alignment there ended up being called Silver Drive. It had to do with a lot split that occurred a long time ago in the early 90s for, I think it was 1524 and 1522. The addresses you see there in the middle of the neighborhood, and the creation of a private access way, and over time somehow ended up becoming called Silver Drive. So it lines up with an alignment, but it's not an official street. And there are utility easement rights in there as well.
Okay,
Madam Chair,
yes.
a private access way is essentially a private easement. So I don't know which street that person uses to get to their house, but it's probably Roundup, correct? Nick, would you know?
I believe so, yeah, looking at the alleyway.
Yeah, okay, because it's definitely no legal access, so it's an easement of some kind.
Well, it's both ways, even from Greasewood up here,
but it stops.
but then it stops. But that's an access way too.
Yeah, kind of an irregular
There's kind of two of them.
path.
And there's no problem with that? Do we need to do anything about that? Just leave it, go it the way it is?
I believe so, but I don't believe we have a part in the private easement.
Okay,
I don't think the city can really mandate a dedication of the silver to give that person access, because there's already a private access way or easement.
well, I was just wondering, because if we give it, is it officially got that name through the city?
That I don't know if that was an official.
I mean, if we're
I think
giving
we-
it an official name, you know,
We've run these in the past. We had one off of Meridian, I believe. The Public Works Director was gonna take the sign down because it confuses, it's
Well-
basically a private drive, if you will, where all those owners own, you can see they might own half of it, along with, as Joel indicated, some sort of private access easement. There may be utility easements in there as well.
That's a little different, though, than a private access way. A private access way is actually created by the city council, whereas the one you're talking about, Larry, is a private easement. And it did have a city street sign for a long time, and it should be taken down for liability purposes.
well, that's what I was wondering about this.
I don't know if
This
there's
is
a
probably
street
not a
sign.
maintained, we could check with Emil Schmidt, but these are probably very likely not maintained by the city. Even though there might be a few of them, as I was talking to Rudy, 1108 and 1130 might have a silver address, we would have to check. But as Joel said, it does say 1111 wanted to split this, that would take city council action so that that person could get a private access way.
Madam Chair?
How do they get their mail?
Larry, police and fire, then, would that impact them with this not being designated?
No, I mean, if they have to get to 1108, they'll get to 1108. It's not fenced off or anything, but it's not.
But how do they get there is what I'm saying. If
They would
gotta-
come up Roundup and then go south, because I don't believe this goes through. You can see this is essentially blocked off here, so.
What I
they-
meant was, if this isn't an official designation, 1108 is 1108 North Ironwood Drive.
That we have to check on. It could be silver. Again, some of these may be addressed where, we have a lot of these where it would be 1108 Ironwood Drive, and then the fire department's running around looking for it. And so, because it really is. So we would have to check with the addressing system and what they use for dispatch. For Maricopa County dispatch does the fire. Everything comes in, as I understand it, comes into our 911 system, but if it's a fire, then it goes out to the Mesa dispatch. But we can double check on those too.
This is just ancillary to the rezoning, that's the only reason I brought
Correct,
that
yeah.
up.
So essentially, the person that owns 1102 off of Gold, they're looking at this whole thing and they're like, wait a minute, why, these other lots look small, why can't I divide mine?
Yeah,
So we're saying, well, maybe so if we get a rezoning and nobody objects to it. And then also, we're looking at having and this is a little different in that these people didn't ask for the rezoning, but as part of the rezoning, we're wanting these dedications to be made. So if someone comes in and signs a petition, they sign a Prop 207, I guess they'll have to, according to Raquel, they'll sign a Prop 207 waiver for those dedications. But you'll see, like on Ironwood, something happened here where we were able to get a 50-foot dedication. What we're talking about is we would just get 33 as part of the rezoning. Because it's very difficult to do here to get 50 at 1153. So we're just gonna, even though ultimately Ironwood would be a 100-foot right-of-way, we're just gonna get 33 because that's what the FPE is. We're not gonna ask folks to dedicate more than the width of the FPE, which is 33 feet.
Madam Chair, if I can ask Larry
Yeah.
a question. So if Mr. 1563 says, you know what, I don't care about your zoning, I'm not going to dedicate that to you, city, what would be your answer as the Director of Development Services?
Well, I guess they could go to the council as part of the public hearing and opt out of the rezoning. Or maybe we take it out of the rezoning and say, well, if you don't want to be rezoned and you don't want to do the dedication of Roundup or Ironwood, then we can't make you.
That's interesting.
So we're hoping that, essentially, it's kind of an opt-in. A couple neighbors have said, yep, we think this is a good thing. We mailed out notice to everybody so we could have a neighborhood meeting. Only 2 owners showed up. They both were in favor. One was the person that instigated the discussion. So from a zoning standpoint, it benefits them. But from dedicating 33 feet of their property, you could say that it may benefit them in that, in theory, maybe their property value would be offset by the assessor accordingly, but sometimes not. So that's really what started it. So most of the lots you can see, 1085, 1065, they're obviously less than 20,000 square feet. So in terms of setbacks and some things, it'll benefit them. They may not perceive dedicating the 33 feet as benefiting. The other thing that we're working with Public Works, you can see in the top right corner, this cutoff corner, we decided we're not gonna try to do that here either. We're just gonna do the 33 feet and the 33 feet. If Ironwood ever comes in for approval or reconstruction like we just did on Delaware, we would have to work with the property owners and try to secure additional right-of-way.
Okay. Let's go down to Shirley. She had
No, my
your
question
done.
was
Okay.
answered, yeah.
Madam Chair, Larry, what if the majority of the people, you said only 2 people showed up and said we're in favor of this. What if the other people said, hey, we don't want to do this? Where do we go from there?
Well, so essentially tonight, we're just asking, do you want staff to proceed with moving forward? We have to put the legal ads in the paper. They will get notices. They'll get notices of the public hearing here and at the council, and they'll come here, and if there's vociferous opposition, you may decide, well, maybe we shouldn't do it.
Well,
So we have not heard anything so far that people are against it. And again, this could be, we don't know the makeup, how many of these are rental versus owner. That's something we can look at. But if I would say a majority of people don't want it, we'll just leave it as is.
Also, if I may, Madam Chair, there's a petition process, and if 20% of the people within the area decide, hey, we don't like this, that could force a council 3/4 vote requirement.
Okay.
That's if it wanted to be pushed.
Yeah. Actually, then the issue of what we're doing tonight, and this, like, up here by around 1563, where you want them to give you access to that area, one has nothing to do with the other unless it becomes an issue.
Yeah, so we have to, again, this is unusual, as Nick said, south of Greasewood, normally if someone requests a rezoning, we require the dedication, but we have them give us the legal description prepared by a surveyor, and then we go through that process.
Yeah.
Because this was a city-initiated rezoning on the south side of Greasewood by, I think it was this owner, we have to pay the surveyor for him to create the lots. I think it was $2,500 for him to create the legal descriptions for Greasewood, Ironwood, and gold over here that abut 3 sides of this. So he gave us a quote for these 13 parcels. There's 13 parcels that would need a dedication, and I forget what the estimate was. It was like $3,500 or $4,000. So Public Works is gonna pay for the surveyor to come up with the legal descriptions. And there'll be a warranty deed. We have a sample warranty deed. The people will deed it over. If they object, then I guess that's when the rubber hits the road, but they may object, and then we can pull them out of the rezoning. It seems to me we shouldn't really get to the council until we kind of know exactly who's in and who's out. It seems like it would be a waste, and even to hear, even to know. So we'll probably have to do a little more outreach, and they've all been sent letters explaining the right-of-way dedication piece, and they were all notified of the neighborhood meeting. So, but now we're moving into the phase where we have to put a legal ad in the paper and essentially maybe create a map and show them a little picture of their property and what they would be dedicating, and maybe they opt out.
So we're not putting the horse before the cart, or the cart before the horse, by rezoning this without knowing if, just as an example, lot 1563, let's say, they don't want to lose 2 sides of their lot, you know? So,
Well, in essence, it's already restricted now.
oh,
The city can put a road. They're probably, I can't turn that layer off, but Ironwood already goes through part of their property. There's pavement on their property.
yeah,
There are utility easements. There are 6 utility companies that have easement rights on their property. So their property already has some limitations of use on it, even though that's their fee title, they own it, but it's encumbered by utility and roadway easement. But I guess what I'm saying is, as we get into the next phase, you're just saying, yes, staff, go ahead and start working on this.
okay.
As we get into the next phase, and if we find folks that are not willing to work with this, either we leave them out of the rezoning and rezone everybody but one person, or it seems to me that if they're not willing to give up the easement, then I don't know that they should be given the benefit of improving their zoning, because I think it is a benefit to them.
Just one curiosity question. That 1563, how close is their house to the lot line?
To the lot line, it's 33 plus whatever that is. It's
No,
another.
I mean that, from where the light green is to the back of
It's
the...
hard to say. I don't,
God,
we
it
don't
looks
have a
like
scale on
the-
here. It could be, I don't know, 5 feet.
And that could be a road 5 feet away from their house?
Right, well,
currently
again,
it
this developed as it developed, you know, back
Okay.
in the day in
Yeah.
1978
Okay,
or prior to that, nobody laid out that Iron was gonna be a 100-foot regional roadway.
yeah,
And so development just happened. And so again, how close the county back in the day was watching it, all this got created. So somewhere between 1938 and today, that house got built when all these, the Small
Right,
Tracts
right.
Act was created, and the feds gave up or got rid of this land, disposed of the land. Somebody got a permit. And so it would not be the first case where someone has a house this close to.
oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
Sure,
okay.
sure.
All righty. Any other questions?
Well, you can see across the road, 1448, that's next to the lot line. I'm just looking at here, there's something, I don't know if that's
Oh,
concrete or what that is, but we have encroachments all over the place in these FPEs that were here before the city was a city.
well, yeah, I know that.
And again, this is just another example of, and Rudy explains it and knows way better, somewhere this was all a federal cell that was, how big of a cell? 10-acre cell? So the feds reserved rights-of-way around the, or easements around the perimeter of it, but not in the middle, where they have other cells that have easements, you know, through the middle of it, depending on the size of the original cell. And then somehow, over time, these things get carved up.
Topsy. Grew up on a
Was
town
not
school.
foreseen when they did something like this, and now we're kind of, the folks that live here are living with the results that they have a dirt road, and they'll always have a dirt road, and so,
Well, nobody forced them to buy it. So,
true.
anybody else?
Whoops.
Any other questions? Is this a public hearing? I didn't look.
No.
No, okay. So you want direction to staff? Anybody want to give staff some direction?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission direct staff to initiate a rezoning of the area bounded by Ironwood Drive, Gold Drive, Roundup Street, and Greasewood Street from RS-20M, medium single-family detached residential, to RS-10M, medium single-family detached residential. Further move that staff take all actions necessary to meet the legal requirements set forth in state law regarding notification of this pending action.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second,
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Rudy.
Commissioner McGraw,
yes.
Chairwoman Nesser,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Commissioner Hanshi,
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay. And well, any information and reports before we get to the director's report?
Well, I guess as I read this, this is really for the chair, or I guess
Well,
maybe a member.
anyone.
Talk about any of the training they went to, or I guess
Oh,
three of you
okay.
went to the training
Willie?
down in
you wanna
I
Tucson?
did.
Tell us?
Madam Chair, I sat in on the ethics and code of conduct. Excellent presentations, along with some of the others. Well worth the effort to go and listen at what we should be doing and what we aren't doing. It's well worth it.
Anyone else have anything? Nothing? Okay. We'll move on to the director's report.
Okay, just briefly, we have this piece of glass and a piece of, I don't know, Kaibab limestone or some sort of Arizona rock, perhaps. So you all know that we did adopt, back in January, the council did, the active transportation plan. So the state chapter of the American Planning Association has annual awards. So we put together a award packet and sent it off to the state office. I think it cost $90 to apply. And then, lo and behold, we won the best transportation plan by the state planning chapter in Arizona. So I was out, and Sydney went and received it at lunch. So that, and the city manager announced this last Tuesday night at the council meeting as well. So I think we put a little notice in the paper, et cetera. And then also we had ASU graduate student, Maggie, who did a project on the revitalizing mobile home parks. She won an award as well for her project. So kudos to Maggie and ASU for that. And then related to that, Rudy presented at the conference on Friday morning with Maggie and ASU about the revitalizing mobile home parks presentation. So that presentation was made to the council. Maggie did, I want to say maybe last fall, and then she submitted it along with her professor. And so I don't know, there were some things in there that we're thinking about doing in terms of her recommendations in terms of the zoning code and things like that. So it was supposedly the most well-attended. Rudy, do you want to chime in on?
Yes, we did our presentation on Friday morning, the last day of the conference.
Usually they're the least attended.
Right. We must have had about 130 people in the room, and the presentation was a little over an hour, about an hour and 15, 20 minutes or so. And basically, the gentleman from ASU Project Cities got up and explained what Project Cities is all about and the partnerships they're trying to form with cities on some of these projects, like Apache Junction, Glendale, a couple of other cities. This particular project was, I think, the 8th project they've done with Apache Junction. So he introduced Project Cities, and then I got up and I spoke a little bit about Apache Junction and the history of mobile home parks in Apache Junction. And yes, we do have some really nice parks, but we also have some of these, older parks, smaller parks, non-conforming parks that could use a little help, could use a little renovation, some new ideas to inject life into some of these new parks. And then Maggie got up and did her presentation, explained her research, her study, her recommendations, and everybody stuck around. A lot of questions. It was very good, and we got a lot of compliments. Maggie got a lot of compliments. Of course, she won the student award for the state, so it was fun.
Good, good. Was there any, I'm just curious, on the transportation, when that was awarded, that you said you submitted a packet, did they give any specific reasons why this stood out?
No, they just gave us a letter saying we won. They didn't tell us, I think there was a runner-up though, correct? There was a runner-up. Who was the runner-up? Do you remember? So they didn't,
That's shocking.
they
I'm
didn't tell
curious
us
to know why.
why they
Yeah.
thought. I hope there was more than 2 submittals.
I think that there
I think there's a total of 9 awards, so it was like rapid fire going through. You really didn't even have time to thank anybody. They just said, here's the award, take a picture, and then move
Oh.
on for the lunch. So,
Well, congratulations, team.
yeah. And everybody here, you all participated in this, along with the park board, did a lot of heavy lifting, and so I think it's nice to put AJ on the map in 2 different ways. So when you're at a conference with 400 or 500 planners and planning commissioners and things like that, and then we get a little bit of recognition so people know that we are doing some good planning out here, I think is good.
So, may I ask a question? Rudy, so would I be correct in assuming that due to the fact that on the last day of the conference, there were a lot of attendees, that there may be quite a few cities in this state that's struggling with aging RV parks and
There's a
mobile
few,
home
yeah.
parks?
Yuma, of course, has some parks. I spoke to some folks from San Luis. There were folks from Kingman. There were folks from all over Arizona. I mean, even representatives of the state land department for some reason, so it was, we had a lot of folks come up afterwards and ask us individual questions. One of our county P&Z commissioners was at the presentation too, a gentleman who goes by the nickname Scooter. Some of you may know him.
Yeah.
So it was good. Yeah, a lot of cities are probably have similar issues that we do, and hopefully everybody learned a little something.
Good, very good.
When things like that happen, do you share, like the report that was done, do you share with them?
The report was published, was made available for review on the APA website, I believe.
And it's also on the ASU Project Cities website, and I don't know that we've received the final document yet from
I
ASU.
printed off a copy, so.
But ASU kind of professionally publishes it, like they've
Okay.
done with the other 7 reports, and we haven't received that one yet.
So anybody can use the
Yeah.
ideas? Good.
Yeah,
it's
yeah, it
two-
came up, I don't know, recently with the solid waste question, is we said, here's the website, if you want to know about how we got to be talking about solid waste, we said, here's the link to the ASU Project Cities. If you want to learn about the dog park, you can go to that website and see that class report.
Okay.
And then finally, we wanted to just give you an update on the general plan. Thank you all for persevering on that. And I understand you did the land use element the one night, so now and Matt McNulty is listening right now, I understand. So Sydney has kind of put it all together, put it on to Matt, and Matt's putting it in a template format to make it look nice. And so our goal is to bring it back here for a public hearing on November 12th, which is a Tuesday, would be our first meeting in November. So our plan would be to get it out ahead of time, and then have a public hearing and adoption that night. And then in December, we would give it to the council 30 days ahead of time. They'd have 30 days to read it. We'd have a work session with them in December, maybe the second meeting in December. Those are not usually canceled. And then maybe a month later, we would have a public hearing at the council, and they could adopt it in January. We'd still be ahead of schedule by, I think we have until early February to adopt it. So we have some wiggle room in the schedule. So the next time you'll see it, we're thinking is November 12th, that Tuesday.
Okay,
So that's all I have, Madam Chair.
all right. Anybody have any
I do. Madam-
questions?
I do,
Yeah.
Madam Chair. It's very sad for me to have to say this, but I have had a dust-up with one of the council people who've said to me that I haven't lived here long enough to know the community like we do. And first, I have said, please define for me who is we, and secondly, what does long enough mean? And I'm here to say that if the city council wants my resignation from this commission, all they have to do is ask for it, and it will be tendered happily. That's all, Madam Chair.
All right. Selection of meeting dates, times, location, and purpose.
Madam
Somebody-
Chair?
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission hold a regular meeting on October 8th, 2019 at 7 PM in the City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard.
Okay. I'm drawing a blank. Do I need a second? Yes.
Yeah.
Can I have a second on that motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes,
Commissioner Hanchey,
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
And unless anyone objects, I will call this meeting completed at, what time is it? 7:35.